Brad Beiermann. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, Matteo, how you doing?
Doing very well, And you?
Good. Nice to catch up with you here too. So hopefully summer's going to be off to a good start here for you soon too. So happy summer in advance here, huh?
Yeah, same to you. Brad, let's get into our topic today. We're going to be talking a little bit about software architecture. But before we do that, I want to learn about you and start by what is your role today? What do you do for a living?
What do I do for a living? There we go. But role-wise today, I work for Everspring, which is an ed tech company. I'm the vice president of technology for the organization. And I've been with Everspring coming up on 4 years or so. And through most of my career, it's been definitely a technology journey, all the way back to academia to, I got my bachelor's degree in electrical engineering, master's in manufacturing engineering, then later on went back for a doctorate in management information systems. So it's been kind of a heads down technology. Went through different periods of some economic swings and different companies, so it's been a fun journey. Love it. We'll go back and do the same things. It's good. So hopefully it makes some sense. A little bit of a nutshell there for you.
Very good. And so you do a little bit of everything in your role. It's a leadership role, and you do a little bit of architecture, right? So for the audience listening to us, how will you define software architecture, right? What are we talking about when we talk about software architecture?
Yeah, that's a great question. I love just the fundamental thing of that, because here's how I would probably think about this. And architecture, software architecture specifically, is really about facilitating change in small increments. And it's a decomposition of problems into simplistic concepts that can be communicated. And all that being said, it's really about reducing complexity and some things here, getting things into a digestible state, things that people can understand, decomposition. And that it's an important piece of really our industry, and not just software, but really a lot of different trades and traditional engineering as well. So this role we call architect, this discipline that we call architect, it carries on kind of cross-functionally in a lot of different technical areas, and that's so an important role.
Very good. And my next question is, why do you think software architecture is important? Is it because of that ability to reduce complexity, because of that cross-functional role and speaking to so many stakeholders within any given company? What do you think makes software architecture so important?
I would say, it remains important today, but we have many interpretations in our industry about what that is all about. And I would probably even go on to paraphrase, for those familiar, John Osterhout, who was one of the computer science professors over at Stanford University. He had really something I thought struck a nerve on this type of subject here. And I think he said something along the lines of, the most fundamental problem in computer science is really problem decomposition, how to take a complex problem and divide it up into pieces that can be solved independently. And it's challenging to identify a single class in a university, really, where problem decomposition is a central topic. We teach for loops, conditional statements, object-oriented programming, but really not software design as a discipline all unto itself, as a course all unto itself. And this is one of these things where it's just sort of one of these things that kind of evolves. And so, as you would imagine, that's what gets us to today about what many interpretations are. But there's a lot of, I think, common thinking. If it was a Venn diagram, if we were talking about what is important about software architecture, there'd be quite a few intersection points, I think, on this here. Now, how we go about that, there's definitely been some changes over the years. So particularly with, I think, where we end up with, as business, and certainly the different economic cycles and swings that go on with it too, that some folks really don't see a direct correlation with it unless you've really been in the business a long time. You start to see, oh, there's something to be said for that.
So not many classes are talking about problem decomposition and really software design and how important that is. And sometimes, when I talk to other architects, it's like architecture went out of fashion a little bit. And do you think, why? Do you think agile went too far? Do you think we just, got confused by some of the methodology on how to create software? What do you think happened that architecture lost that, that importance that it deserves?
No, that's a good question, Mateo, because I would say it's probably not out of fashion, but rather in our industry's quest, in our quest to become agile, we set aside some of the tedious and long, sometimes, design exercises that we had during more of a waterfall-driven type of development, and when we look back at when it was very much a waterfall type world, it still is. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of great things that come out of waterfall. We use it ourselves, hybrids of it, and everything else. But the one key piece here is, how do we treat design and the artifacts that come out of it, and everything. And so I think as we started seeing not only the Agile framework come into being, but also software frameworks, such as Python world, Django, Ruby world, it was Rails, and we started seeing some of these software frameworks that could allow me to, scaffold something fairly quickly in that. And that's great. We were in a quest to become productive. And that's always really the goal. How fast can I get something going up in that? And it really brought about an era of, I think, what has become a tactical developer versus the strategic developer. Tactical is, okay, I just need to get the code running. I need to get it good, get it through QA, and boom, there we go, out the door, small increments of that. Fantastic. That's great. The strategic developers want to start thinking about, well, I'm going to build a high rise. I'm going to build a skyscraper here. They've already got a start of a vision here rather than a task by task, ticket by ticket. And they're starting to think, okay, I need to put some planning into this before I start building it floor by floor by floor. Because if I don't, I'm going to end up with the Leaning Tower. If I don't, I'm going to have, Willis Tower, leaning over or whatever else. So you've got to plan that out. And so the discipline around that, I think we've even seen in the Agile world with different Agile frameworks like SAFe, Scaled Agile Framework, start to reintroduce some of these concepts with, in Scaled Agile Framework, it's called architectural runway. And you have enablers that you use. So it's really, as we're doing our sprints in 2-week, 3-week increments, there's not so much as this huge design focus like you would have in waterfall, where you spend months doing it. It's now a focus of design just enough to build some runway, okay, for the plane to take off. The plane being development, and that is putting enough track in front of the frame, in front of the train, but not building all of the track. And then some metaphors here to pull up on. So it really reintroduced that. And so, yeah, the notion of, I would call, and I think Simon Brown, who developed C4 method, disposable architecture. And that is, I created something just enough to get through the sprint, but I'm not going to go back and nurture that diagram or artifact and keep building on it, keep going up to date on it. But I've left a trail of breadcrumbs about my thinking. And it's not just a code base we've got here. And it's not all stuck up in somebody's head, some senior developer that has all the knowledge. And that, so you've got artifacts, and that's the key piece. Here's what artifacts can I go back? What little nuggets can I see that are maybe diagrammatically captured, something in a picture, something in a recording, things of that. That's what we're really out for here and some of these things. And so who owns that? Who's kind of responsible to make sure that discipline takes place? There's your architect. There's your architect, really making sure we're staying on the straight and narrow with that type of thing. Hope that makes sense.
It does. What can you tell us about experiences that you had in your career when you always knew those artifacts are very important, right? And you have the architect mindset, so you were ready. But was there a point in time where something happened and you realized, oh, these artifacts are really important and they are making a difference for a result?
Yeah, that's happened quite a few times. And I think where I saw that show up the most was, really when you're bringing a new team on board, you bring on board some contractors, you need to get them up to speed. Knowledge transfer, the person who had the knowledge left out the door, and now you need to bring these folks on here. What do you have there? And there's one piece. Another piece I think I saw that I've seen too here is we talk about diagramming things. We talk about drawing. A diagram and a drawing are two different things. Drawing is, Mona Lisa, interpretive. Diagram is about a real specific thing, okay, functionally. And having that in hand is a key piece here. But I would say one of the biggest ones I saw here, Matteo, and this was really, I think, when that we could be seeing again in this economic cycle coming, that is acquisition of a company. When you have, let's say we've got a lot of we've got a lot of startups today that have really been living on a lot of the capital that is out there, okay? And as we're now coming out of this quantitative easing and into the quantitative tightening, so to speak, it's not easy to go out and get funding right now. The interest rates went up very quickly this past year, and the capital's kind of dried up out there. So you've got a lot of startups out there that might not get their next fund, and they could be in jeopardy. So one thing you might be looking at is potentially a sale. Hey, can I sell this to somebody? They come in and buy us. That because there's some good things we did create. It's not finished or whatever might be. So you end up in a situation where you're going through diligence. And for those that have been through diligence, that is one heck of a technical audit. If the company doing the acquisition is doing it right, the big thing to remember here is that an acquisition is often the acquiring of assets of a company or institution, and often a customer base that provides revenue. They're really not out to buy people. I know that they'll probably cause some people, oh yeah, they are. Well, consider it at software developer level. Developers come and go at moment's notice, and they carry all the knowledge. And if you haven't done your diligence internally to make sure you've got artifacts there in the form of your architecture, not just a code base, but your architecture, things that somebody can go back and you can show during the diligence, during this audit that, yeah, here's a sequence diagram. Yeah, we follow UML here. Yeah, we follow C4. We've even followed the Crutchton 4+1 type of model here. That makes that whole thing very much an easier decision for them. It's like, hey, look, I don't just have a code base here and then some engineers with all the knowledge in their head, because what's the risk there? Well, those engineers walk out the door. You have no idea how this code base works. Does that look like you're primed up for an acquisition there? Probably not as much. Okay, so they're out there to try to minimize their risks. So assets. So yeah, design assets, that's a huge one. Not just functioning code base here. I mean, I often tell my team, keep in mind, working code is not the goal. A quality product that works reliably, that people will put their money down for and trust is the goal. And that's how you get it, by being strategic developer versus tactical. Just get it running, get it out the door, versus let's think about how this is going to work, be reliable, something that somebody will put their money down towards, somebody will acquire a company for. That all comes into play right now. And so we're at a really interesting point right now. When I said earlier, economic cycles, this could be an opportunity where if you don't get the capital for the company, if you can't get recapitalized or something else, do you have an acquisition? Maybe you can go after there. How do you make yourself attractive for that when you come to that diligence phase. Right there, there's what you're going to be looking for. And I did go through that a couple times. So going back to your original question, have I seen that? Absolutely, been a participant in that. And later on, after we got acquired, I had folks come back to me and said, I got to tell you, that was pivotal right there. You just showing us that you captured some of this thing, and some sequence diagrams, class diagrams. We understood it. That was huge. We usually don't see that in a lot of startups. So that's a big piece.
That was going to actually be my question, in terms of, I know it's hard to put a number to this, right? But if you had to say, out of 10 startups out there or 10 companies out there, how many really have this, assets in place, these diagrams in place, and maybe through your conversations with investors as you went through the diligence and they said, not many have this documentation. Do you have an idea of what that means?
Yeah, and I think as I've worked out there also in the consulting area and got to see so many of these different dev environments, you definitely get a feel of the different flavors. And it's definitely a Baskin Robbins 31 different flavors situation that happens, because now the question becomes, what makes a good artifact? What makes a good design artifact? What makes a great architectural artifact? And because here we are, we're talking about diagramming something, following an industry standard. I point at UML. There's others out there. What you want to avoid here is where I look at some type of artifact and it's scribbles. It's a couple of boxes connected by some lines. And this came about where some developer described this to a couple of other folks, and they decided to copy that, right there, take a picture or something. That's all well intended, but could somebody come in cold that knows nothing about what you just discussed about, look at that diagram and explain it? There's your litmus right there. And if you're following something that's more of a standard way of diagramming is a language. I mean, that's why UML became popular some years ago, unified modeling language. It is a visual type of language. And those who are really good at that can capture that, will find themselves in a good place here. Whether you follow the standard or not, again, I would go back to, I mentioned Simon Brown earlier. He came up with the C4 model, which really gives you an idea of how much abstraction do I need to go through here. And think of this as like, as he explains it, Google Maps. If I'm zoomed out real far, okay, I'm seeing the planet, or I'm seeing the continent, so to speak. Okay, there's C1, there's that first level. C2 is, well, let's zoom in on the state or city level. C3 is, well, can I get to the township area? Okay, and the C4 is down to the street level, and there you are. Same thing with design. Just described it. A C1 is just a high level description, almost like you use an estimate. C4 is going all the way down to code, and it works in reverse too. I can reverse engineer it that way, but it's all to get something that somebody coming in cold could take a look at this and say, oh, I get what your thought process was about. Oh, you saved all your diagrams. I understand a bunch of these are out of date, but I get to see where this come from here, rather than trying to go through some code. With all respect to our developers out there, there's people that are still coming up the curve of how to learn how to code, because you have some places that brought in people from a dev boot camp, and they're trying to do that. You'll find some of that in the code base, and it's hard to follow. So for a lot of startups out there, they did hire that type, and that's down in comments. So are they going to have that structure in place? Probably not. If somebody was more, I would say, seasoned or senior that really understood this part, they'd probably try to be pushing them to create artifacts. But again, the quality of it is going to be a key piece right there. Hopefully that makes some sense.
Makes sense. So it brings me to the question of who can create these assets, right? Is it just the software architect? Is it just someone that has years and years of experience? Can you coach and teach someone that is more junior to embed the asset creation into their development? I mean, I know that you said classes are not putting a lot of attention into this, right? But who can create these assets? What type of preparation do they need? When do you get started?
It's The short answer is, well, anyone can do it. But probably the more longer answer is, well, who's been through some of the training on this? I often find some of the more senior devs that have been at this a while have certainly ran across different modeling languages. In fact, a lot of our tools that we work with, something like Miro or Glyphy, one of the design tools I think Atlassian offers and so forth. They have a palette in there for like UML or flow diagrams, flow diagram. There's even some set up for systems. If you're an AWS engineer, it'll have those different components in there. So what do you do with that palette? How do you use it? Do you know what to put down on there? Can you create a use case diagram? Take the time out as a developer to try to learn that. That's not going to be something you're going to walk in the door as more of a junior mid and probably have that in your hip pocket. Knowing what those are. And I know there's a lot of folks that come out of the CS curriculum, and at one point or another, they got exposed to something. And oftentimes I will tell you, people I've been in interviews with as a potential developer is I'm looking to hire. I've asked them, have you been around UML? I said, oh, that was a thing we did in college. I said, have you touched it since? And they go, no, I haven't done anything with it. And I often ask, I said, is there a reason why? And somehow or another it gets pegged as, well, that's something that's, I don't know, that's an academic exercise, or, well, that seemed to get popular around the .com era, and that's all well and said and done. And for some reason, I think they're left kind of in their minds like, well, this is just not something you really do because, I can get something running. I can get something going without that. There we're back to the tactical developer mindset, ticket by ticket. That's fine. That has its place, definitely. And we need that type of development at the right time too. But we've got to go back and pick up, make sure we've collected these things. So there is a learning curve right there. So can anybody do it if they're willing to take the time to learn how to visually model something right there? And so getting down one of those languages is key. Becoming familiar with, I mentioned a Crutchton 4+1 model. A lot of people haven't heard that, or if they have heard it, it's been a while. That's also culminating, hey, what types of different views I get out of like a UML type thing to say what would really capture everything I need to know to build the software, to build a system for it, the networking, all those types of things, and give you an idea around that. And today it's so easy because we've got websites dedicated to these tools. We've got company dedicated to these types of tools. So the tooling, it's ripe for the taking. I mean, you got so many different ways, all the way from beginner to advanced. So I would say, start checking that type of thing out. Go over there on one of those design palettes and say, oh yeah, here I could, these are things I want to do. Just, anything but just start scribbling something that looks like a bird's nest. Okay, because somebody's not going to be easily able to go back and say, I get that. And going back again to, here we are in this environment. Are we looking at potentially some startups that they're either going to go under because they can't get the funding, or maybe they get bought for the assets? Here's your opportunity. Get on it, because you could find yourself in a good spot with that.
Where and how did you learn about all of this? Was it when you were becoming an engineer? Was it a little bit there, and then when your working experience? Did you have any mentor that ingrained all of these concepts in your head and in your mindset?
It came a little from all those you mentioned, and I would say going back to school. I mentioned I did my undergraduate as an electrical engineer, and when we're talking circuitry, we always have some type of circuit diagram that goes on there, but it's not always a detailed one. Sometimes we'll draw an equivalent circuit that there doesn't have all the, but it gives an idea what's going on. So you can see it happen on that realm too, because you want to hand your technician, well, here's what I'm looking to get wired up. Here's what we're looking to get built prototypes or something like this. Over on the IT world, where I learned it was actually where I went back for my doctorate degree. And there was a course that was specific to UML. Okay. And so it was called Designing by Patterns. And this is also another area too. We could probably spend an entire discussion on patterns, design patterns. People love their design patterns. And it's fantastic. Those are architectural building blocks. Those are reoccurring things right there. So I learned a lot of it there was a course I had that was dedicated to UML. There was also another one that was just dedicated to patterns and capturing those and building systems. So, Gang of Four, that was very popular. Some of these things have been around a while. Does that mean they're obsolete? No more obsolete than JavaScript has, or Java itself. Those languages have been around for a long time. Still, we use them every day. And that, there's even the analogy here is, although there's nail guns out there, gas-powered nail guns, there's still hammers, and people still use a hammer today. It finds its place. You'll probably find more people carrying a hammer than you will a full-size, gas-powered nail gun or air-powered nail gun. But they both have their place, and so that is where I picked that up. And I would say, when I came into the kind of switch more from the traditional engineering into the IT world, that was one of the entry points I went with. Here was, hey, let's see what we can do on the design piece. Because at the time, you saw tools like Rational Rose. Rational was a company that became very popular in the late 90s, around 2000 or so. And they had a tool, Rational Object Software Engineering, very popular tool for generating a lot of this stuff. In fact, with Rose, you could generate the diagrams, you build the diagrams, and it would generate the code from those tools. Which is funny, when you think about this today, we hear everything going on with AI.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's amazing. Large language model there can generate code. That's fascinating. No, this is nothing new. And it's not a language model we were using. It was a model based on diagrams, visual. So I fed it diagrams and it spit out the code.
It's a good cue. That's a good cue. And let me ask you the following question.
Mm-hmm.
You are stressing a very good point about the difference versus a tactical developer and a strategic developer, and how I think we can agree that in the last 10 years or so, we got flooded with tactical developers, right? Mm-hmm. And everyone out of a bootcamp code will be asking for, whatever salary, and things got crazy, right? A little bit. And now things are changing a lot. With AI today and Copilot and things that are happening with ChatGPT and some of those tools, do you think we will get more tactical developers joining the mainstream because of this, or do you think that there will be less tactical developers and more, a bigger need for strategic developers that can actually think through the architecture and the design, and because, the need for developers will go down because now, you have systems that can speed out the code anyhow, right? Or developers can do, those strategic developers can, with the help of these tools, work as if they have an army of 6 developers under them, right? And it's just them.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts there?
I'm going to use history as my guide on this. Now it's hindsight 2020, as I got to witness very similar thing here with Rational Rose. I'll use that. I'll go back to that one, for example. So it was 2023 today. Now we're talking something goes back to 2000. Okay. We've had a lot of history on this. So adoption is an interesting thing with this. But yeah, could we end up, there's an assumption, I think, being made, and that is these tools that we're starting to see, based on a transformer like, GPT or Google's Lambda and what have you, Bard, these tools can generate code. Very similar to the way many years ago, something like Rose would generate code. And by the way, Rational got bought by IBM. So, I mean, that's still out there. And instead of me just giving it, vocal instruction or typing it in as textual instructions, it was diagrammatic instructions I gave it here, and it would spit out the code. How come that didn't catch on back there? How come we couldn't just start to see people just diagramming stuff and it's spitting out code left and right here? And now you could, I don't have to think too much about it. And it would have the design baked in because that's where it started, which was so great at that. Now we've got things here such as Chat GPT. You just, I want this, I want this, I want that. You give it your wish list and boom, it spits out the code. I'm seeing the exact same thing happen as what I did over 20 years ago. And that was when I go to take a look at that code right there. Do I see a try catch? Do I see a try catch block? Do I see try catch throw block going on? This is exception handling. This is, non-happy path stuff. It gives you the code that works. It doesn't take in really all the consideration unless you give it a lot of prompts to say, okay, I want it to be able to withstand this type of condition coming in. I want it to be able to withstand this type of failure coming in. Okay, would I be able to go through that code then and start to see where it has all the exception handling built into it? And that I haven't really not seen that come out of these tools yet, unless you really get explicit in the prompting. And here we go, kind of more to your question is it going to be more of a tactical type developer doing that? I think the industry term I'm starting to hear is software broker going on here. And that is somebody that's very experienced. That's more of a senior type who knows what the system should have and what's the robustness of it, what's the quality. And so they can see the code coming out and say, that's not going to be enough. That's not going to capture my situation. If I run it on this type of infrastructure, I'm going to have silent failures on it right here. That's a little bit of a product mindset, but that's also an engineering mindset. So we could see this, I think, software broker type. Could they do it in a tactical manner? Absolutely. I mean, it spits it out. It spits it out. Just like we started seeing things such as Rails many years ago, around 2005, 2006, spit out a silhouette of something. We call it scaffolding. Okay. But is it production ready code that's coming out of these systems? Could I just take that and go run with that in production? Depends what it is. But if it's something large, probably not. Are we starting to see these tools such as Copilot maybe help me be an assistant to it, generate something quickly? Absolutely. That's the exciting part about this too. That's where this really gets to be, this is a tool in the box, so to speak. That's where I'm saying this is another tool in the box. It's a pretty powerful one that can do this type of thing. Today it's being typed in textually. What's really different about these tools is these tools learn, unlike the tools of yesteryear. You have a dialogue with them. So they're continually learning and learning more about you and how you talk and what you ask for and things like that. So we're going to see these tools get to really tailored and pick up on dialogues that you previously had. You don't have to start over with it saying, let's go back to this problem I had here where I wanted to generate this section of code. Okay, and then pick that up. Couldn't do that before. That's new to this, which is exciting. That is the exciting piece where we're going to end up with this. So yeah, time will tell on this, but very exciting things coming out there. Some very powerful tooling, I would say, is right around the corner. Well, it's already on our laps, but it's going to continue to morph.
There's the potential. People say some articles out there say, I mean, everyone is trying to figure out how this is going to play out, right? And nobody really has the crystal ball, but some people say this will enable all of us to create more software, right? Faster. Does that mean better software, or do you think there's the risk of just spamming a lot of, crappy software out there? What do you think? Even with your experience and looking back at history, do you think that over time the quality of software keeps evolving, or at sometimes there are cycles where we speed out all of a lot of quantity of needless software or low quality software? What are your thoughts there? Does my question make sense?
Mm-hmm. I draw an analogy to the auto mechanic. It's a very similar thing. The auto mechanics that worked on the Model T at the time compared to the auto mechanic today. Matter of fact, if you go back to see there was a Model T pickup truck. I think it was called the Model TT back in the day. All right. Working on that was a simplistic vehicle. Okay. But the mechanic today has to work on a, what is now a Ford F-150 with computers embedded on it, processors embedded on it, way more complicated vehicle, a lot more things going on there. And is that mechanic able to fix more cars with that going on? Is he able to do repairs more easily with the tools that he's got going on? Answer is yeah, because there's onboard diagnostics that we now have on, and he has an he or she has an onboard diagnostics tool. I could just now go up to the car and plug in something and see if it starts throwing error codes on it before I even buy a car or something. And that makes it great. And there you go. There's the smart tools right there. We didn't have that on the Model TT. Is the mechanic themselves in a much higher place of productivity? Certainly, but to take a note of what the vehicle is today, the complexity of what it is, we have to have that tool now to get through just the complexity of what the vehicle has become today. But when you whittle it back, you could also make the case not a lot has changed. Because if we're looking at building, okay, that pickup truck, well, it's still 4 wheels, got doors, it's got a bed, seat, steering wheel, engine. It's, as I described that, sounds like the same vehicle, right? But we know better than that. So yeah, same way is going to be in the software world right here. I got to believe that's what it's going to be. And that's what it has morphed into. And look at our tooling today, way more advanced. I mean, my gosh, it's incredible what we've got today for software tooling. I mean, CI/CD is just an amazing place. I would have never thought, 20 years ago, I don't have to have my server on-prem here because I got to go back and fix it. No, it's somebody else's problem. It's up in this area of the cloud. I never see it. I don't have to touch it. It's your problem, not mine. There's your monthly paycheck. There's your monthly check for it, and just keep it running. And I'll write the code. And so, yeah, we'll definitely see that.
What do you like the most about our architecture, or what do you do, right? I mean, you have what you do at Everspring, you do consulting as well. It's Sunday, you look at the week. What gets you excited about what you do?
It's probably technology in general. The technology train is always moving, okay? And it's always changing. You're always growing when you're participating in it. You're there for the ride, going along with it. There was actually a period of my career when I was retired a little bit. I actually created a web business that did really well. I no longer needed my job and I didn't have to work, but I learned a lot during that time. And I learned retirement sucks. And I thought I got to be doing something. So I started getting back out there and just, taking on different jobs, consulting and whatnot. And that was the exciting piece, and that was a part, I think, where the growing comes in. So it's that way every day. Even though I may be working with the same team every day, we get a different problem thrown at us. And the business is people. That's what it is. The business is people. The money comes from people. The customer is always an interesting thing because, as I've long said, I can't remember, maybe it was a Zig Ziglar that said this, customer only buys 2 things: solutions to problems and good feelings. And good feelings really come from credibility and trust. And that's something you have to build, and everything. And so that's a little abstract from being a technologist, but in a way, no, it's not. We're out there to provide something that builds that trust, that credibility. That's not an easy thing. That's not something you just go out there and buy. That's a culture. That's getting people to bend in those directions. That's taking a small company to a large company and getting through all the cultures of when you start off as a garage band, so to speak, and now you've moved into a full-size orchestra. Okay. I say the music analogy, Mateo, because I know you can relate to this there. So it's the 4 of us playing a 12-bar blues versus we're going to now play a concerto in E flat with a 50-piece orchestra. How are we going to stay in sync? There's an artifact known as a sheet of music, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what gets it. That's really no different. What we're talking about, as opposed to that 4-piece, could be a jazz band, could be a blues band, but there's some type of agreement of how things are going to progress. But when the band gets way, way bigger and the pieces get more complicated, the Ford F-150, how do you do that? And that's the scaling of an organization. There's the challenge. And there's the parts I love that. That's exciting to me. And we do that at Everspring, and we do that really well. And, that's, I think, also how we've become known in our industry for our quality too. It's very much from that, getting good at that repeatability, doing the same thing over and over without derivation, and then being able to scale that. That's where it comes from.
Nice. So do you think there is a comparison to be made between an architect and an orchestra director? You know about all the instruments, you can abstract yourself and just look at the bigger picture, but you also can dive deep into what each instrument is really doing at any given point in the song, or the theme. Will you say that there's a little bit of that?
That's a great analogy. It's no longer a musical conductor, it's a musical architect that knows the composition and knows how to decompose the musical piece into various sections, and knows the passages of what type of progression is going on there. And that's spot on. Wow. Good for you. That's an awesome analogy. I like that. Mind if I borrow that? Or are you going to put a trademark on that one?
It's all yours. You can use it.
That's a good one.
You work a lot with different people in your team. You probably coached a lot of people in your career, right? What type of people, what type of traits do you find in people that can become good architects, or that you would like to mentor and coach? And for anyone listening that wants to become a good architect, right? In your experience, is it curiosity? Is it attention to detail? Is it, what is it that you look for when you're trying to coach or find a good architect, or things that you've seen that they are going to become a good architect?
I'd say at the top of the list, it's very much a communication role. It very much has A+ communication in it, because you're going to work with so many different areas. You're going to work with a product owner, you're going to work with developers. And when I say you work with them, you're going to go into the weeds. You're going to go way in the bowels of things to know how things understand. You're going to work with a QA team. You're going to work with a management team, a customer. That's so many different areas. Kind of back to the conductor analogy. You're working with a horn section, a string section, a timpani section, and all that. So this is somebody that I think has a full embracing in a broad spectrum of things. Okay, system level, software level, business level, and that. In fact, mentoring folks, last several positions I've done at companies, I've had them set up an architectural review board, ARB for short. And that is a platform for an architect to grow from, because we'll embrace something, open group forum, architectural framework, I think. And one piece out there we really like using is the architectural design model, ADM. It just takes you through business case, technology vision, current state, future state, governance, and just walk through those things. And people that want to touch upon all those things, they really do well. And you're really giving them a platform to work from. So there's times I've had somebody that wants to go into that architect role. And I can't tell you how many people today, software developers I run into, they've been a developer for a while, and they're really not sure what the architect does, and that they see various things. And part of that is a symptom of what's our interpretation of architecture in the industry, because it's changed. It's very loose and open since we went into the agile world. You have to figure when the agile manifesto was being put together, roll back the hands of time, it was almost unthinkable that there wouldn't be some type of huge design session going on that would last for months because you were in a completely waterfall world. This was an effort to say, let's scale that back. Let's get this into manageable chunks to what later became, you now have folks they don't have to do any of that. They're just going to get some code running on the framework and boom, voila, it's out there running. I can put together an MVP very quickly. No, that discipline comes over time, some experience in that. Take a look at the AI tooling together. Do I really have to go to a software team as somebody wanting to start something up, company or an idea to create an MVP? I can literally just place my order into ChatGPT or any of these tools that are coming about, and it will generate some type of silhouette of something you want to go for, which is a huge benefit because that lowers the cost of how much it takes to create a product or software just to go out and say, I want to go ahead and get funding for this, but I need to show this. I don't have, $800,000 sitting around angel money or $2 million, whatever it might take. You just have bootstrap money. Okay, whatever's in savings or whatever your dentist or your uncle gave you right there. And that's what you're going to do and generate from that. So, but is that something you're going to production with? Probably not. Maybe it depends what it is, but there's where the software broker comes into place. And that broker is well aware of all the idiosyncrasies that's going to go on in all these different areas. There's your architect right there. It says, how will I get this AI model to build really what I want? I'm going to have to work with it, and I'm going to have to probably interject in some things right here. So you have to figure where we're at today with AI on the large language models, or even the image models we're starting to see, which are very impressive. It's the worst they're ever going to be. It only gets better from here. It'll just continue to get better. So if you're not real happy with what it is today, stick around. It will continue to get better and grow right here. So, and it's doing a lot today. It's absolutely amazing what's going on with some of the AI image things that they have out there. So more to come. That's the exciting part. And so, yeah, I think it'll raise some excitement here too in the industry too. We need more software developers now than we ever have. And we've got more tools than we've ever had that always made the claim, this is the end of software development.
Yeah.
No, it just doesn't work that way. These are case tools, computer-aided software engineering. I mean, they've been out there for years. We're used to them, and they're a great tool for us to use, and we'll continue to do it. This is a diagnostic machine, back to the mechanic analogy right there. Can't work on a car without one today. Can't work on a software base today without our IDEs that we use today, which are so key to get us productive.
What besides, or is AI the technology that excites you the most today? We're talking about it and some of the tools that are aiding developers. Is there any other technology that you look at it and you go like, wow, this is changing things, I'm super excited?
Well, AI certainly has the buzz right now. Earlier in the beginning, as I mentioned, one of the things I went into education-wise was manufacturing engineering. I ended up getting a master's in that. That's going back a ways. I'm not going to date myself here on this, but there was a class I took that was about robotics, machine learning, and AI. In manufacturing, this has been around a long time. Computer vision was a big thing. It still is. Have image recognition of, can I spot a defect after something is drilled? Can I spot a defect after something is assembled? Can I get this robot to now assemble this type of thing and learn about how to improve based on data in that? So we've been doing this a long time. What has really changed is the processing power and the footprint that it takes today is small, compact, and extremely powerful. And the exciting part, I'm going to think, is when we get this more into a mobile factor, when we start seeing these things happen on a handheld phone here. I mean, you think the phones are powerful today. They're basically, our phones are laptops today. How many people just live on their phone more so than their laptop? Imagine what that's going to look like as we continue to grow with that. Because some of these models we got today, GPT, it doesn't really run on it. It's a small footprint. That's not where it's been at. So it's going to go that way for sure. That's going to be exciting. What is that world going to look like? The more portable the technology gets, and the price will always come down on it.
Exciting times to
Yeah.
live
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So more to come on these chapters.
in. Yeah. One last question for you, Brad. What do you do when you're not working?
Well, I have a wife that I love to be with a lot. We do a lot of activities together. We go out and just keep it simple. Really, just kind of relax. We'll go out and do a coffee shop safari. We drink tea mostly,
Nice.
and that, yeah, and that, and we do trips. We do road trips too. I just moved actually down to the Texas area about 2 years ago, and boy, as that time flew by because we've been on so many road trips just here in the state. And that's El Paladuro Canyon. We
Nice.
love driving. Yeah, we love driving. I have not flown in years. I'm one of these folks that gets behind the wheel. It's like the vacation is not the final destination. The vacation is the trip getting there and everything you see along the way that everybody else misses because they took a flight.
Yes.
So that's the excitement of it. So yeah, that's what we're doing. So
Very
that's
nice.
fun.
Any road trip planned for the next months?
Yeah, actually, I'm actually headed after I get back from. I'm supposed to go up to Chicago actually later this week here for the company. But when I get back, my wife and I we're going to head down to San Antonio. Probably go to the Riverwalk down there.
Okay.
We've been down there once last year, and it was really exciting. So we're going to explore a little bit more in San Antonio. It's a fun area, very much a culinary area that's growing too. So yeah, that's going to be one. We'll drive that one. Pass by the
Nice.
Tesla factory on the way down there too.
I look forward to seeing some of those pictures from the adventure.
No, you bet.
Brad, it's been an absolute pleasure. We talked about many things. I learned a lot. I always learn when I talk to you. And I know there are many things that can become a new episode someday, right? So I look forward to that next episode that I'm sure we will record someday.
Yeah, likewise, Matei. I always have a great time talking to you here. And so thank you so much for having me here. It's been a fun discussion. And that's so, yeah, thank you again.